Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
So in today's episode, ladies, we have Samary Agosto-Polnett. She is a wholesaler and buy and hold investor from Connecticut. What we get into today is her story of transitioning from her confidence in being a therapist to joining her husband in their business and what that looked like and how she was able to thrive and also just kind of figure things out so she can create systems, processes, and build a team around wholesaling 15 deals a month.
Virtually, right? She wholesales this virtually and having, doubling her family. I think breaking it down, this business, because this is not a side hustle, this is a business. And she was able to transfer her skills from a therapist to the wholesaling business. And that is her advantage all over other people that are doing the same thing. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, where our mission is to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life, right? We do that day in and day out. We have some amazing, amazing women on our show. Samary, thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey with us today. Excited to jump into your story. Super interesting psychotherapist and what you're doing now. And maybe we could just make this a session for ourselves. But thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Awesome. And Jessa, we always like to get connected to our amazing women and men who listen to the show and follow along in our journey. So thanks for tuning in. We so appreciate your time. We don't take that lightly. So I have a quick story about getting out of your comfort zone.
Oh, how fun.
I know, right? It's really fun, but it's not fun.
Well, people talk about it as if it is fun, right? It's like, yeah, you should go there.
So this past weekend, we went to a skiing kind of weekend. We took the kids. My husband, Matt, grew up skiing. His dad was a ski instructor, so he always got free lift tickets for the kids and made that work. So literally, he grew up skiing every weekend in the winters, like for many years as a kid. I did not grow up skiing. And so I kind of got into it a bit when we started dating. And I'm like, this is fun. I did black diamonds. I was like a little bit of a daredevil. Wow. And then you get a little older, you get in your almost close to my mid 40s. And I'm like, I don't ski anymore. So this past weekend, I hadn't skied in 10 years. I'm like, no, I don't think I'm going to ski. We were with some friends. She has little ones. I'm like, oh, we're going to hang out in the lodge. And then Zach's like, can you ski with me? I would love to ski with you just one time. He kept asking me. I'm like, all right, Zach. All right. No problem. Matt's like, you got this. It'll come back to you. I'm like, yeah, no problem. So you know how you go down a little lift to get to the lift of where you're going? It's not really a lift. It's not really a hill, but you have to go down a little hill to get to where you want, what lift you're going to take. So that's the hill that I go on. Literally, it's like, 10 yards? And I'm like freaking out. Going down this little, already. It's not even a hill that people go down. I called Matt because he had already left. I said, I can't do this. I'm going to kill myself. I'm very nervous. I'm very uncomfortable. Zach's like crying now because he wants to go on. He's like, we only have an hour left. Matt comes back. He's like, gonna give you some tough love. He's like, you got this, Liz. And he just kept saying, like, if I end up in the hospital, it's on you. So just letting you know. So see you later.
Why is about the hospital?
And I had some curse words. There were some curse words also in there, but we're going to leave that PG. So we get on the lift and I'm like literally freaking out. I'm taking deep breaths. I'm like, I got this. I kept saying it to myself. So we get down. I said, Zach, I only want to go on a green. It goes green, blue, and black diamond for those who don't skate. So he said, no problem, Mom. I'm going down the green. I'm going to go down the easiest one that I know of because he's been going down all day on these. So of course we start going. And then we take a turn. I'm like, I don't know if this is the green because he kept with me. And I'm like getting a little more comfortable. Then I see a big blue square. I'm like, Zach, this is not green. What are you doing to me? Because I stopped and he stopped. He's like, no, Mom, it's green. I'm pretty sure it's green. If you got this, Mom. So we go down. I'm like, this is a blue. And then like the hill was really big.
Pretty sure I see blue.
And I'm like, now when you go up to a moment on the hill where you can't see down, that's where I was. I'm like, I'm gonna kill myself, And then I had to regroup, get out of my comfort zone, and I'm like, I got to get down that hill. It is what it is, right? So I did it. I didn't fall once. It actually kind of came back to me, which a lot of people say. We get down, and I looked at Zach. I said, Zach, I told you I wanted to go on the green. What happened there, bud? And he goes, Mom, I knew you had it. I knew you could do the blue. And I just wanted to push you a little bit out of your comfort zone. So I was like, this is a good story,
He's
right?
your son.
He's my son. So I say that because, it's funny, right? We all need to have people around us. And my husband kind of gave me some tough love, right? They both kind of pushed me a bit and it was uncomfortable. And I was actually kind of like annoyed and I had these boots on, but I went through it. I trusted them, I trusted myself, and I regrouped. And I think we all can take that into our daily lives as investors, right? Where do we need to push ourselves out of a comfort zone? I'll even take one step further. Where do you maybe need to, or possibly somebody in your circle, they've been talking about something and you need to push them out of their comfort zone and give them some kind but tough love. And I think that's what this community that we built is so important about. It's not just telling people what they want to hear, because that's easy. Go to your friends, no offense, but a lot of friends of mine will just tell me what I want to hear. And that's not what we do in our community. And not that we're mean or too direct, but it's with love, right? And it's about getting out of your comfort zone. And you can't do that sometimes just by yourself. So that's my recommendation, not just for you to get out of your comfort zone, but where is someone in your circle has been talking about the same thing? I want to buy that short-term rental. I want to get into multifamily. And they just keep saying the same thing. Where do you need to push them? So that's what I got for you this week.
I'm listening to Die with Zero, the book.
Oh my God. You've been
Die
talking
with Zero.
about that for you love that book.
I have, right? And one thing that they said is that forget about your bucket list. You need to create those buckets by age. Meaning, for example, do you see yourself skiing at 80? Maybe not, maybe yes. So skiing, it's between 40 and whatever that age might be. If you miss that gap, you won't do it. So what are the other things, right? I know, Liz, we're super excited. We're doing a mud run.
Yes.
I've been talking about mud run. I'm seeing it in a couple of years. I was like, that should be fun. And then when I saw it, I was like, listen, I want to do a mud run now. I cannot do a mud run when I am 70. That's not going to be as fun. So I just have a couple of decades to do mud runs. So let's say, Liz, let's do it. So we're doing it next month. I don't know when it's there. It's on our calendar. That's what matters. So for those of you that are listening, right? What are the experiences also, Liz? You got me thinking also, what are the other experiences that I want to have? What is that time frame that I need to have it, or otherwise I'm not going to have it at all, right? So, and as we are getting geared up for InvestorCon, where we are going to be talking about generational wealth, that is all connected. How can you set the next generation for success, but how can you also live the life that you want now? How does that look like? And maybe you never had those conversations with friends, and you can have it in the future. And if you come to InvestorCon, I guarantee you're going to have plenty. You're going to have plenty that you're going to open up your eyes and say, well, wait a minute. What's going on over here? I need to press a reset button and start living instead of surviving.
Yeah.
That is very, very important. That being said, that's all we have for the short story for the beginning of our podcast.
That's right. That's right. Oh, we're so excited to have you, Samary, on our show today. What lesson, here's our first question here for you, is what lesson has taken you the longest to learn?
I want to say, there's a lot of lessons just diving into real estate, but honestly, right now, I feel that staying consistent has been my number one lesson, right? Because I feel sometimes we get distracted, right? By what's new or what's coming up, instead of staying consistent in the path of something that we're working hard at, right? And if we don't see results, sometimes we can pivot, but not, stop everything completely. So that has been one of the biggest things that I'm okay, I have to stay consistent no matter what. This is, pushing through whatever is thrown at me, I will problem solve through it, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to quit and then I have to start something brand new. I can just continue working at it in a different manner.
So you left your job as a psychotherapist. You start wholesaling 15 deals per month with your husband. Before we get into the nitty gritty of that, I want to know one thing. What are the psychotherapist strategies that you are implementing in wholesaling? Because I bet
so many.
You were totally.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's so many.
A lot, and you have an unfair advantage compared to other wholesalers that don't know what's behind the scenes. But connect the dots to me.
So many. I mean, honestly, it's one of the I think blessings I feel that I'm able to really like take so many just things that I've learned in the therapy world, right? And just apply it in this setting. Because at the end of the day, when you're wholesaling or anything in real estate, really, when you're working one-on-one with like sellers or, homeowners, et cetera, you need to connect with them, right? You need to make it more about them. It's not about us. Yes, at the end of the day, everybody wants to make a business and make money, et cetera. But it's really like that connection, building that rapport and helping them like, where do you want to be? Like helping them see like, what's your end goal? Like, yes, my goal is to get your property under contract or to acquire a new rental property or et cetera, et cetera. However, what is you? Like, what do you want? And like those skills really came in handy because in the therapy world, that's what we do often, right? Like we put it back on the client, right? So we start to open up like the box, right? The Pandora's box, but the good one. And just being able to like, okay, what do you want? Like, let me talk about you, like your feelings, your emotions, where is your mind? What are your goals in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what is your end goal, right? Like, of course, yes, you want to get rid of this property, blah, 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 et cetera. So active listening, and I get to teach my team that all the time because I get to like pass that on and say like, this is how we talk to sellers, like we have to dig deep. We have to listen, actively listen. You're taking notes, like, so you can use that back when you're speaking back to them about, their property and their deal that you're putting through.
I love that. I have a background in social work. I got my master's degree in social work. I actually never practiced, but I did, right? I did it in my family.
You practice, honey.
Yeah.
You're being practiced.
I was like, I'm like an verified social worker, but I completely agree with you. So much of what, Andres and I talk a lot about in our community and with our members and just everyone is that, investing is a strategy, but then how you do it, right? And what you're saying is business, communication, all those pieces are how we hold ourselves as a business owner, as an investor versus just the strategy of finding the property. It's relationships, right? So I love that. I love that. So let's get a little more into your journey here. So you're, and I know your family grew at the same time, your family was growing, you're a psychotherapist, and then your husband had the investing business already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then so tell us a little bit about the shift of leaving psychotherapy and then joining him with two twins, right? Two twins. Yeah. Obviously two would make twins. But you already had two
like
kids.
You have four?
I know, right? Sorry.
Twins is like, wait a minute.
Making sure everyone's listening right now. So are you listening? That's the question. But you had 2 kiddos at home, you have 2 more, and it's just a lot happening for you. Tell us a little about what was happening for you and then that jump into your business with your husband.
Absolutely. So it's funny that you started, mentioning about pushing yourself out of comfort zone. So the therapist in me always, promotes like pushing out of your comfort zone, creating goals and like, let's work at these, right? Like they're not going to happen overnight. We can wish and dream all the time. However, nothing's going to happen until you start taking action steps, right? To make that happen. So when when we got pregnant with twins, et cetera, like I never wanted to do anything with real estate. My husband is a buy and hold investor and that was not my thing. Like, he has the rentals, like great for him. Like I didn't want nothing to do at all, like at all. However, I had decided, we decided that I would stay home because, childcare costs are super expensive and we couldn't afford like make it rational, like to go back to work, put 2 in, daycare, paying like my salary basically out there. So in the meantime, I got tired of hearing my husband talking about he wants to grow his real estate business for the last like 10 years and taking like basically no actions. I'm like, you're still saying that you want to grow your business. I don't understand.
He's not listening, people. He's not going to be upset about this. Okay? And if you are, what's his name?
His name is Rufus.
Rufus, don't worry about it. We understand all you have gone through, okay? We understand. Don't worry about it.
I bet he knows. It was like that tough love, like, okay, what do you need me to do? So I was like, I'm home. What do you need me to do to help you grow your business or even get it started in a different way? Because all I know is like the rentals. And he's like, there's so many ways to like, create a business. And I'm like, I was clueless. I had no idea. Like when I think of real estate, I only think about like landlords or flippers or realtors, right? Like, okay, that's all like my mind could really grasp. So that's when he started talking about like creative real estate, wholesaling, all of that, sub-twos, seller financing. I was like, wow. Like, so I just dove in and started like just reading and absorbing as much information as possible, like listening to every podcast, watching every YouTube video, like going in Facebook. I mean, you name it. I was like on it, reading, researching, etc. And then I'm like, we're gonna wholesale. Let's do this. Like he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, we're gonna we're just gonna do it. And like literally it was like March of that year. And then like by May, like the business was up and running, like we hired a virtual assistant because obviously I had like twins that were not even a year old yet. So I was like, okay, I can't do like call calling. At that time when we were doing a lot of call calling, I'm like, I can't call with like twins and like they had very sporadic schedules, etc. So it was like rock and rolling though. Like, it took a while to get everything started and to get traction, because it's a learning process. But I really don't regret that because I feel that I learned and I continue to learn so much in the business that I'm like, okay, that didn't work. Let's do something else. Like, what's going to work now?
Yeah. For you guys, I hear wholesaling a lot about, oh, you don't have money to start, you get started in wholesaling, as if wholesaling is a simple activity. It's not. It's a business. It's a follow-up business. It has entire structure about it, and you have the time to put into it. That's what it is. If you were to put in buckets, right? What are the pillars of the wholesale business that you would say it allowed you to do 15 deals per month?
So for us, honestly, in order for us to grow, we had to get out of our comfort zone, right? Sometimes we spend a lot on marketing and tools that helped us streamline our business. And yes, you can do the business with not tons of, income. However, it makes it a little bit easier. And also it gives you more traction. So you're able to get, 15 plus contracts every month, like, and make that happen. I always recommend like, start out. Look at what you're comfortable with at first, right? Like what you're learning, but get uncomfortable very quickly because you're going to have to learn new things and new systems and like kind of fail fast. We always say like, fail fast so you can get through like the steps and like, okay, let's do this. You got to make that call, you got to like find your marketing that is something that speaks to you. And if there's something in your business that you do not like to do, it's not only real estate, any business, right? Learn how to do it, but then also delegate it because your use of time is it's much better in another area where you can actually excel and like be more productive. So I always recommend like, okay, start the business, learn all the aspects of it, right? Learn the negotiating part, learn like just getting started, building the report, learn the steps from A to Z because you want to know every step of the way. And then once you're familiar with that, now you can start like throwing in different variables. Now you can start adding more marketing. Now you can start like, doing this. Now you can start, you're comfortable with running your numbers and putting together offers that are reasonable and that, everyone is in a good place with them. So that's my biggest recommendation and like my biggest, tidbit for anybody who's starting out or who wants to do it or grow their business.
So specifically though, right, when you got started in wholesaling, what systems did you put in place? And did you create those along the way? Because in a lot of ways, right, we create things as we go. However, in the research you did and the fact finding and just, how did you set yourself up and how quickly did you get to 15 deals? I'm curious. Was it, kind of steady? But I'll put that question on the side. I'm curious what systems you put in place and when you put them in place so that you can scale, because you did eventually. So that doesn't matter as much. But yeah, tell us a little bit more the specifics and which actual systems, because there's a lot of systems in wholesaling. It's a lot of follow-up. It's a lot of moving pieces. It can become very consuming. I know. Yep. So what did you put in place initially or as you went and be like, oh my God, I need to do this now. And this is how we're going to do it. And this is what we're going to use.
Yes. So at the very beginning, I knew quickly that I couldn't have the time to call, right? So I hired a virtual assistant like right from the start. She was working with me very part-time and then we grew the hours. So now we have 2 full-time like acquisitions, and then a dispo side as well. But that's, where we started. I started with somebody with like just 5 hours a week, right? And I would do the lead generating, right? So I would find like the free ways of lead generating, right? Like the for sale by owners or like, going on the pre-foreclosures and looking at the judicial websites and like scanning through them. These are a lot of like time consuming things. However, these are things that are quote unquote free and that you're able to like, put your list together. And then once we started those systems, I would pass that on to the virtual assistant, right? So like once I learned them, I would say like, okay, now I'm going to teach you how to do this so you can do this for me. I would do the method of driving for dollars because again, I was not working, right? And then my husband actually does work outside of the home too. So he was like, that and the rental income were like the only incomes that were coming in the home. So I had to be conscious of like what our budget was as well to be able to like stay within that. So I started, putting different things in place. I didn't start, you'll hear a lot of wholesalers use PropStream, which I do now. However, I didn't use that until after 2 years that I started wholesaling. So I was doing a lot of lead generating with like driving for dollars, the virtual way, like looking for properties, even in my own neighborhood, working with other wholesalers and like working with them as a team, right? Like JVing, right? You hear the term a lot, like I'm going to JV with you, you split your fee, et cetera. So I would help them find like the buyers, et cetera. So all of these different things were things that helped me grow the business. And then after that, I was able to say like, okay, now I want to use this system for lead generating, right? Now I want to like, cold calling is not my favorite thing. What are other ways that we tried mailers, right? So we did try a couple of different things, right? The marketing and like, we looked at how much the cost of that was and looking at that as well. But I always look, like you said something just earlier, like it is a business. And I always think that a lot of people get into this business thinking that it's like a side hustle that you can just get in and out and make like money really quickly. And like maybe that happens once in a while, but really for most of us, we have to treat it as a business and we have to put those systems in place and assess like what's working, right? Like, okay, I don't like talking to people, so let me do texting, right? Like I can text better and then like build rapport that way. Or you know what? Let me send some mailers out because I don't have to get on the phone with them until they're interested in me, right? Like in what they're selling, et cetera. So you have to kind of know your own personality and like your own way. And also like be open to push yourself out of your comfort zone and like, let me try something else because if that's not working in that area, like what else can you do to make that happen?
I'm curious about the numbers, right? Because, before, say, you have someone listening to this and they're an experienced investor and they're like, I really want to give a go to wholesaling for a variety of reasons, for whatever, or they're starting out or they're not starting out. I think the numbers of anything really matter. How many properties do I need to have on the list, right? Then I'm going to call those properties and how many are going to respond. And then that yields me how many appointments, and then the appointments yield me, and obviously we all know, but that helps make the decision of whether or not I want to do that. And if I don't want to do that, to your point, how do I build a team to help me execute that? Because if it takes 500 on a list to get to a property, I know there's not an exact science, but how many were on your list? How many calls did you make for that first wholesale deal? I'm curious just to understand and then have you been able to reduce those numbers and streamline those numbers better? And are you pretty clear on those kind of that breakdown?
So for us, when I first started, I was literally just throwing anything at the wall, basically. And like, we'll do things as we can. I'm like, okay, we have, X amount of properties. So my goal was always to get through like 100 properties every week, right? Like get 100 properties, whatever method that we were getting these leads, that didn't matter. I just wanted 100.
You called? Okay.
Call 100 properties every week and then have a follow-up system. Now, again, in the beginning, it was, I come from a therapy background, even though like, I don't know much. I do have a minor in business because that was my original, like what I wanted to do in the world. I never really like did business, right? Like I didn't know like what to put in place, what those systems look like. So we didn't know like, okay, stick with one market, instead of going to 5 different markets at the same time, because that's also going to reduce the pot that you have, right? If you have 100 leads in one area, you're more than likely to get potentially some type of results, right? Like, et cetera. So now we know better, but like, at the beginning, it was like it was about 4.5 months before we got our first contract. So, and to put it in perspective, and I had a VA who was working 5 hours a week for me. So anywhere between 100 to 200 leads that she was calling. And then she was following up with these as well. Now, we didn't have a great follow-up system at the beginning, like CRMs, all of that. They didn't come into play in my business until probably 1.5 years when we started really tightening on those, right? At the beginning, I was just like, I know we could do this. Let's do it. Like, what do we have to do to make that happen? So we were just going and going and going. Now, I always say like, now I would keep better records and notes of that. I'm a big like pen and paper girl. So I always like wrote things that I had. I still have my first like notebook where I kept all of my leads and like will write down their addresses and their phone numbers and their information and like send it over to the VA. But that's like very tedious too, right? Because if you're writing down like all these leads all the time, you get, your notebooks all over the place. So as we grew, and we started putting better CRMs in place, right? We use like the Google Drive where we could share like, Excel spreadsheets all the time. And it was, able to like, she would look at it and I'm able to look at it. So we continue to look at leads. You can use like different platforms to pull lists from like PropStream, right? And like there's a whole bunch of other ones out here that are helpful too. And we started using those to do our lead generating. So we're not always like looking at the nitty gritty stuff data, although that is the best data, but it is more time consuming.
I'm curious about what CRM you currently use for
So
follow-ups?
now our great CRM is Trello, believe it or not, Trello boards. So
Mhm.
I hated Trello at the beginning, like because you build out Trello, right? You have to kind of like go through like everything and all of that. So now we have a really great system, like all our leads are there when they're coming in. Now we use a mass texting platform that we send out lists through. And then that we create basically like 2 weeks follow up. So anyone who we don't reach out to or we can't connect with, we try to connect, our first order is like, initially send out like 3 messages, right? And if we don't get any response back, we follow back up again in another 2 weeks. And they stay in our drip campaigns like that. So that system keeps those in. Now the leads that have some type of interest and that CRM comes into the play more is like, okay, we put the list of interest and then like we run numbers, et cetera. And those are active leads, et cetera. And like, people who may not be interested in the offer right now. And then we put them back into drip campaigns. So we use Trello in conjunction, to look at those leads, anything that's active deals, et cetera. All of
Uh,
those.
I'm curious about like cold calling, right? When we say the word cold calling, people are like, "Oh
I
God,"
know.
right? It's like door to door. You're
Yeah.
asking to like, "Oh gosh," right? What's happening over here? And I think that it's a skill set that everybody should have, and there's no other way around, right?
Mhm.
Liz, I feel it's like this key thing, right? There is only one way to go down.
That's
It's
it.
the mountain.
Yeah.
To the mountain. And I think that people don't do cold calling because they're afraid to get rejection, and that can get a like 100 like, oh no, ah, phone in your face and hanging up. How did you deal with that rejection? How did you brush it off? How you let go? How did you not take it personal? Because I think this is one of the biggest hurdles for wholesalers.
So for me, bringing back like that therapy background, I know that, sometimes people are not in the right place and, their feelings, they might be emotionally attached to their property. So I always keep that in the back of my mind. Like it's never about me. They might be going through a situation right now. They're not in a good mood. They had a bad day at the job, etc. Like maybe they're not answering, sometimes people will say like, we have gotten like crazy messages or calls back, that people say like really bizarre stuff that would probably send somebody crying sometimes if you like haven't experienced, communication like that in the past. So I always say like, do not take it personally. It's not about you. Like it could be any circumstances, like what's happening and like, you got to think on your toes, you got to be quick. So I always share that one of my favorite things that I did when I first started, and I read this in a sales book. I can't remember who right now, but they said like, join an improv class, right? Do an improv class and do it often because it helps you kind of really come out of your comfort zone, right? You have to think on your toes and like, you got to like get out of your own emotions and just be there, right? Like just boom, just do it right then and there. So it has helped. And I always say like, go do an improv class. People are like, you're crazy. That's not like, nobody wants to do that. It's like, no, absolutely. Do an improv class. It will push you out of comfort. It's people that you don't know. And guess what? The people that you're calling, that you're texting, you don't know them, like they don't know you. And you're going to have to just respond and be ready to go.
How have you been able to differentiate yourselves from other wholesalers? Because, in the space with homeowners and the signs and we buy houses, a lot of homeowners are turned off, if you will. They're not like, oh my God, I can't wait
I
to get
know
another.
how she says,
know.
and you get a free therapy session.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great idea.
That would be
That's your differentiator.
Samary, I think that's it. Oh my gosh, your phone will be ringing, honey.
I know.
Seriously, everyone
But
needs therapy. That's the
I
case.
know. Yes. No, but
But I'm curious, like, how did you handle that?
for us, I mean, I think for me particularly, and like in how I built my team too, is the way that, really lead with compassion, right? Like, and just empathy and understanding, right? Like, do not lead with sales. because we're not just trying to get a sale. Like a sale is a sale, like there's many times that sales are going to fall through, like that we don't end up with closing, there's a lot of factors, etc. But we don't lead with that because we still stay in like a relationship with the seller. We want to be able to like have the seller, you know, come back to us and say like, you know what, I have other properties, or I know someone who may be interested and has such a great experience with you that I want to like, share them, with you. And I want to be able to like be in a good place. And I think that that's probably like my biggest thing, because we have encountered people who have said like, oh, I had a lot of these people call me before, like, I don't want a lowball offer, blah, 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 et cetera. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I understand, but like, again, they're leading with more of the sales part of it. And it's just like, I want your property, I want to buy it right in your house, like right now. And it's like, okay, great. But what else, right? Like, you're just a number, and like, they don't want to see like, you're just like this corporation coming in, like, taking over the neighborhood, or just buying these properties like really cheap so you can flip them and make like all this money out of them. You really have to like just be empathetic to their situation. And like, that's what we always do. Like, we really like do this all the time.
Yeah. And it sounds like too, you move beyond transactional. And often we are very, people are very transactional. Investors are transactional.
Yeah.
It's about the numbers. It's about this. It's about that. When in reality, it's not, right? You're dealing with human beings. So you have to be a step forward. If you want to differentiate yourself from anyone, don't be transactional. It's pretty simple, because then you'll be just like everyone else, you know, and that's obviously you really want to make an impact. I'm curious how COVID and then now with the changing economy has impacted wholesaling, and like, what shift did you see? Because you've been wholesaling for quite some time. So, everyone during COVID, right? I mean, there was a craziness going on in our country with people wanting, a lot of money. And now people still, large small deals, people are still holding on to COVID time of what pricing they want for their properties. And it just doesn't make sense for a lot of investors, right? It doesn't make sense for a lot of people. So how did you navigate during COVID and also now with the economy and what's happening?
So I'll share, because I was, I started wholesaling about a year and a half before COVID, right? So it was like boom, 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 so when I first started, it was, it was starting out. Then business picked up, like I started doing a lot more business, and COVID happened, right? So everything was a standstill for like 2 months, and we're like, what the heck is happening to the world right now, right? Then when real estate started picking back up and like, all that surge and like the properties were going high, we were doing really well with wholesaling as a whole, because we were looking for, areas and places, we look for a lot of homes that are not in the best shape, right? Like that, need a lot of help, even with the higher prices that the retail was offering in a lot of, neighborhoods and for a lot of sellers, we were able to kind of explain, right? Like, I'm big of explaining. I don't know, like, again, I like to teach and be like, look at this. I don't care what Zillow's telling you right now. Like, that's not, Zillow can tell you like,
Zillow told me, well, call Zillow back and say, hey, Zillow.
I'm like, I don't know what cause they're looking at, but I like to bring, like, I even show them sometimes like actual like comps, right? Like, this is what we're showing. This is what we're doing. Like, it's going to take, $100,000 to get your house to even come close to a price, like this, etc. So I like to educate and be able to do that. And I've always done that even through COVID and afterwards now too. So now, even when people want like the higher prices, right? That's still like, the COVID prices are really like $50,000, $100,000 over market value.
I like that. Do you want the COVID price?
I know. It's like, we're not getting the COVID price right now. Like, this is not happening in these areas right now. So I do like to see that. But to your point, like, a lot of investors are not right now. They're kind of like not as aggressive with buying as they were like in the last few years, because of, like the interest rates. And not every investor is a cash buyer. Like, I feel like when everybody learns wholesaling, they're like, look for cash buyers. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, most investors don't always buy cash. They buy like with other people's money, the bank, hard money, private lending, all of these things. So I always say like they are looking at the interest rate, and if it's not something that get flips quickly, and that they're planning to hold, you have to be like, you have to know what properties you're getting into contracts, So I don't always put properties that have tenants in place already, right? Because that's not always gonna like be lucrative, or that's going to be able to like assign, unless it's something that we want personally to hold, with my partners and anybody else. But outside of that, we really analyze them and look at them and see like, who are buyers right now and what they're buying, right? So it's just like, okay, I don't want to hold the property for 3 months. I don't want to hold a contract for 2 to 3 months, because I told the seller that I wanted to, we're going to close on it. My team is going to close on it. And my partners are going to close on it in the next, 45 days. So I want to make sure that is, we're true to our word, right? Like that's what we want to do.
Samary, I'm going to share with you one of my pet peeves.
Tell me.
When I get wholesale deals, and the wholesalers that I've done business with them before, it's very straightforward. They are very conservative with their rehab cost and the ARV. It makes me like say, don't ever send me another lead when I get like a property that it's a full gut. And then they say, yeah, 15,000 rehab. And then you
15,000.
can sell it for $500,000. COVID price, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, wait a minute, what's going on over here? You're just wasting my time on this here. So you can make the numbers work. For you, for a wholesaler, what do you guys do in order to evaluate the construction cost and provide the investors something that it's more accurate?
So I have an advantage because my husband, is a buy and hold investor and has, flipped his own properties. And like
You
even
are full
before,
of advantages,
yeah.
Marnie.
So
Not okay.
So even though, I don't know if I mentioned, but most of our deals are virtually. So I don't step foot in most of the states that I do actual deals in. I'm in Connecticut. I have done deals in Connecticut, but 90% of mine are out of here. So I don't ever really walk the properties. I go by pictures and then see what's going on. And I have usually the seller to take pictures, or I get boots on the ground and hire someone to go out and take pictures and video. And I sit down and assess it. I know now, a lot about, how much it costs to do certain jobs and the areas that we're in. So I'm able to really estimate that and fully like, okay, this is a range right here. Like this is the neighborhood that it's in, it's not going to take this type of materials, what are you going to put in there, et cetera. So I am able to do that more. And then my husband, whenever I'm stumped on something, I just show him the pictures and the videos and he helps me like with the range, and it makes it a little bit easier to make that happen. But I always suggest if you don't have that to your advantage, just like, walk a property, even if it's local with a contractor, right? It might not even something that you're going to wholesale, right? But like, and then get several contractors out to that same property to see like what their ranges are. Because we were going to flip one in Connecticut and I had 3 different contractors give me like estimates. One was like at 100,000, one was 150, and the other one was 225. I was like, okay, well, somebody's wrong here because 225 from 100, like, like what is this range?
But it gave me,
it is. I'm like, what? So, it gave me a range that I'm able to like, see. So I always recommend like, what, go out to your own neighborhood, like even if it's not a property that you're going to see, walk the properties with a contractor, like get a few contractors out so you can start getting a feel for like what these are, right? Like what the cost of something is. And you can start putting numbers together and just, I'm sure like there is a lot of videos out here and like YouTube is great and like Facebook could be great too. But it's always good to know it for yourself too, or to know a range yourself, right? Because the cost is going to be different if someone is doing their own work versus if they're hiring a whole contracting team, right? Like it's going to cost them a lot more. But if you have people who are buying and flipping it themselves, it's going to be, much less. So you just got to know a good range.
And you have to also know what is the market going to bear. So are you over improving, you're under improving, or are you appropriately approving, if you will? And most investors don't think about that, and it is so important. I mean, we're going to be moving forward with buying a vacation rental. Jess and I were in Florida and we were walking through a $5 million property, and you would have thought it was like the Home Depot contract. It was a Home Depot contractor that
I was so pissed.
but the finish is in. So it's not always right. And then you can go through a property that's in a neighborhood, $200,000, and people are improving it like it's Taj Mahal, right? It doesn't make sense. So you have to know what over improvement and under improving a property is in your market. I also would say though, we always like to say, what's the unique factor, right? What's the wow factor? What's something that's going to draw people to this property? So you're not just improving it like cookie cutter. No. We're not big fans of that either, but you also shouldn't be doing it in a way that's like apples and oranges, because people aren't coming to that community for oranges, but they want an apple with some peanut butter on it. That's a really bad analogy, but you got what I'm saying, right?
Okay.
So Bad analogy.
Like,
But
try to connect
you're
the
trying to
dots.
connect with
Okay.
my random story or my random analogy.
Gotcha.
But, you want to be different. You want to have some sort of uniqueness. You want to have some sort of wow factor and be consistent with what's the market going to bear because you can't control the market. You're going to participate in it and you want to participate in it well. So I love that you're doing that. I want to segue into the balancing act. You left this job that you probably were very confident in.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, you had your own identity. And I know this, and Jess and I talked a lot about this with other women. And now you leave that. You had 2 more kids to the fold, right? And you joined your husband's company. Now it sounds like you added an arm of the business that wasn't there. So, that's pretty amazing. I'm sure some identity was there, but how did you make that transition? Was it hard? Was it, how did you keep yourself kind of honest and making sure you're getting your needs met and knowing yourself and kind of feeling good about yourself and confident in what you're doing as, a mom and, especially with twins is a whole other, there's Facebook groups for moms of twins. That's a big deal, right?
Oh gosh.
So I'm curious, and joining your husband's company, how did you do that? How did you do it well? And how did you keep yourself kind of centered?
I think the biggest thing that has helped me and like really grow more and give me that balance of the unbalance, right, is really create partnerships, right? So not only like do I work with my husband, but I have partners, like in other places, right? So they have helped me delegate and be able to balance, right? Because if I'm the one responsible to do everything, I will burn myself out in a week. I wouldn't be able to do that. 4 kids, like my twins are 5.5 now. I have a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, and they're all in different stages. So trying to manage all of that, like college, pre-college stuff, like middle school and like kindergarten, like, and then, our current like business, like the rentals and like just doing this and doing that. And I'm like, okay, the biggest thing for me is like, I found I'm so blessed to say like, like amazing partnerships that have been with me from like, after like a year and a half of me starting the business, right? And like, we're still together and like, we're still working together on that. And then being able to let go. So I don't want to say I'm a control freak, but I like to be like, in control, right? I like to know where everything is and I like to know like what's happening at all times. And that's often, like I have to trust like that the people that are put in place are doing what they need to do, right? Like, and that, I can check their work and I can check what they're doing and what the offers they're putting out there and like how they're sending the contract, et cetera. But I don't need to be like checking it every minute, right? Like every step of the way. Because if I do, again, I'm just doing the work myself at that point. I'm not allowing them to do the work. So I've learned to do that in the balance. And like, it's still hard for me to kind of like take a break, right? Like even when I go on vacation, like I still like have my phone and I can't fully unplug all the time and just checking like the emails and seeing what's happening. But I say that slowly that's becoming like better for me. Like, okay, I can take a break, right? I don't have to answer the emails today. Somebody else can answer them, because they're capable of doing that. And I don't have to, like make that call or send out that contract right this moment.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think that's also why I love what you're saying about the partnership, because when you are working with your spouse, and I know when I transitioned, it's so important to have that other, and when I met Andressa and we would be chatting about stuff and it was like another voice in my life that was a confidant versus, just your spouse. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to work with your spouse, I know, but, and it's frustrating and it's tough and it's all encompassing. So to have people that you're not married to that are partners, I think is a great recipe for success because there's other people at stake in balancing it all. So I think that's a great strategy. So, Samary, this has been great. How can the ladies listening learn more about you and follow you along your journey?
So I'm on every social media. I like to share and, wholesaling and real estate again. So you can find me at Samary Polnett across social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. It's just my name, Samary Polnett. So Samary, and my last name is Polnett. My website is also the same. It's www.samarypolnett.com.
Awesome. All this information you guys can find on our show notes. Now we're going to transition to our fabulous 3 questions. And the first one, Samary, is what's the most transformational book you ever read?
Oh my gosh. No. I want to say Think and Grow Rich. I know that that's like a big one for everyone, but honestly, I continue to read it over and over. I almost read it every year because it's like it helps me go back to like this blueprint, right, of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and what steps am I missing out. Like, okay, I didn't do this thoroughly, so let me do this again. So I will say Think and Grow Rich is my favorite.
That's awesome. The second question is, what's the most powerful routine that you do to create a financially free and balanced life? Whatever balance means to you.
Schedules. And I was never one to be a favorite. I'm like free, like the free spirit. But scheduling my days has helped me be more productive and like really delegate and do things like I need to do and be able to put time aside for my family and be able to like work the business at the same time and not having to like feel like everything is like this all the time. So scheduling your days, especially when you're working from home, right? Like I work mostly from home most of the time. So it's easy to just be like, you know what, let me go do some laundry or wash the dishes or like start dinner in the middle of the day. So schedule your day so like, what you're doing. Like, okay, from 8:30 to 11:30, I'm working the business. And then from here to here, I'm going to do this. So that has been productive. And that's also helped me like just create balance, quote unquote, of what needs priorities in my life and at that point in time.
Last question. Which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
That's a hard one. Oh my gosh, I can't. So I'm gonna be cliche in a way, my mom, and I'm gonna say that because if it wasn't for her drive to drive like me and my sister, like we would still be kind of in a comfortable way. Whatever we grew up, like I grew up in an inner city environment. So if you know much about that, like it's just that, right? Like what you see, what you hear, and like I'm a product of the environment, but in a positive way, right? Like I've driven and she has been that factor, pushing us through like college and beyond and just strive for your dreams and what you want to do.
Awesome.
Samary, thank you so much for being on our show. Thank you for sharing your journey and wisdom with the women listening. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.